Well, hey, long time no see.
Yes, it has been. Right.
Welcome to Laird Wellness Live. Scott Laird.
Jody Laird.
And hello. So we missed a couple of weeks. We've missed you. Hope you've missed us. You know, it's summer. People do stuff. Those kind of people include us. We've done stuff. So one of those things was the beach.
Yes.
That was some of our stuff.
Great week at the beach with the
Yep.
family.
Yep, we did lots of boogie boarding. I love me some boogie boarding.
I love me some just sitting around and doing nothing.
Yep. No, we like when the waves come. I send my daughter, if we get like a storm warning on our phones, I send it to my daughter and go, ooh, look. Because
yes.
everyone knows if you're into boogie boarding or surfing that after the storm comes some good waves the next day. Because what happens is you always get a nice blue sky the next day, but the waves are still coming in because of the delay of the wind coming in over the ocean overnight. So you get some really nice waves the next day. So we did encounter that. There were some pretty big waves.
Yeah, I'm not a boogie boarder. I'm not a fan of sharks.
No, sharks. Oh, come on, sharks are your friend. Anyway.
And then we also went to Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Moved our daughter for the 5th time in the last 6 years.
Yes.
She started PT school this week in Arkansas, Woo Pig.
Yeah, Woo Pig. And then, we moved her, and it wasn't 102 degrees as it has been in Arkansas for the last little while, so thank goodness for that.
It rained the whole time, which is
great. Yeah, we're like,
good.
Okay, great, bring it on. That's wonderful. Yep, she actually has a wonderful living arrangement. She worked for a physical therapist who, when he went to school, a family allowed him to live in their house for free while he went to school.
Yeah.
And he and his wife, they're believers, and they said, you know what, one day we want to do that for somebody. Well, guess what? That somebody walked into their life in the form of our daughter, and she's able to live for free at these people's place.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And they have a couple of little kids, like 2 years old and 8 months old, something like that. So she'll probably get called on to do some babysitting, but who cares? So we're really happy about that. She's really happy. They're really nice people. Really great place. So
it's a blessing.
yes.
Sure.
Yeah, so thank you to Seth and Laura, right?
Yes.
Laura, yes, Laura
Beth.
Laura Beth,
Yeah.
Seth and Laura Beth. So thank you very much. Anyway, so we're going to talk tonight about some medical misinformation. So during the last couple of years, a lot of folks like us and others have been accused of misinformation. Well, okay, really there is some misinformation, but it's on the other side of things. We're not even going to talk about viruses. We're going to talk about just misinformation in general, about things that are just sort of generally understood truths, I guess, if you will, in mainstream medicine. Or theories, just some, they're like common knowledge that's not really right. So we're going to dispel those things and just bring you some truth about what you can read into your own blood tests and things like that. We're very big on blood testing and all that kind of thing. So we're going to show you what we would read into blood test versus maybe somebody who has been through the medical system and has been taught that way. So now, not to disparage doctors. Doctors have a lot of knowledge. They, especially when an emergency happens, I want to be going to an emergency room where they know where they're going, what they're doing, right?
Right.
So, but as far as like chronic diseases and things like that, not a lot about that is taught in schools. All they're taught is just, there's a drug for every ailment. Well, that's not the only way to do things. If you can't figure it out, okay, take a drug for a while until you can figure out how to change your diet or your lifestyle or other aspects of how you acquire this ailment,
right?
And try to reverse it. The idea of drugs is to go on them for a short time and then go off, not to stay on them forever. In fact, most drug manufacturers will put on there that, look, there was a study a little while ago that said that after 5 years, drug efficacy of any particular drug you're taking just kind of loses its power because you're not intended to be on it forever. Right. You're intended to be on it until you can figure it out. So tonight, hopefully, we're going to give you some information that can help you figure things out, perhaps before they even happen. Or maybe if you're in the midst of something, you can help get out of where you are a little bit quicker.
Right.
So we are going to start out with some medical misnomers like, for example, let's start with the blood test ranges. We deal with blood test ranges all the time. Something called a reference interval. So on the right-hand side of any kind of blood test you get, there are these reference intervals, what they consider to be normal. Well, you have to ask yourself, where did they get those reference intervals? So they have to sort of say, well, where are most people? And most people who don't get disease. Okay, well, they're between this parameter and that parameter. That's considered normal. Well, that's the average American, right? Do you want to be healthy as the average American, or do you want to be healthier than the average American? I think we all want to be healthier than the average American. So we have to be a little more fussy with those reference intervals.
Right.
Which means they're not exactly what you see there on paper. So, they either flag you as high or low, and those flags automatically cause concern. I mean, when you see
Absolutely.
those, you say, oh no, I'm high. Well, okay. When you're supposed to be between 0 and 200 and you're 201, they flag you, and all of a sudden everybody panics. They're like, oh no, I'm high in this or that. What do I do? And then you look at that and go, well, it's really not a big deal. Or yes, it's a very big deal because the reference interval didn't, panic soon enough in order for you to be in optimal health. So we're going to look into those type of things. So one of those is like vitamin D.
Right.
Typical reference interval says that anywhere between 30 and 100 is okay.
I remember about maybe 10 years ago when we met Billy Weiss, who is our friend who is a pharmacist.
Mm-hmm. Compounding pharmacist, likes to make his own stuff and get people off of drugs and on the supplements.
He asked me, he said, Jody, everybody should know their vitamin D number. And what is your number? And I was like, I don't know what it is. So now I definitely know what it is. And I know when it fluctuates up or down, and I kind of play with it all the time. But not a lot of people know their vitamin D number. If you do, put it in the chat that you do, because I'm interested to know if you know your vitamin D number.
And what is it? Put the number in the chat, because we're going to talk about vitamin D a little bit later, but we're just going to go through a few things here that we know are things we need to look out for. So that's one of them. So because, if you say vitamin D between 30 and 100, that's like saying, well, if you're between 98.6 and 105, you're okay. Because,
you're not dead.
Because you're not dead. As Dan Bongino's show would say, the idea of the show is don't get dead.
Don't get dead. So we say that to our son now.
Yeah, we're going to borrow that. So don't get dead. So in other words, you need to have vitamin D over 30, and certainly, over 100 is okay, but it's like, ooh, you want to bring it down, because what happens is with vitamin D especially, and we'll just go off on this tangent for a minute, you've got this, what they call a J curve. So imagine a graph like this, and you've got high risk of disease with low vitamin D, and then as you come down to higher vitamin D down here, let's say 80 to 100, now you're very low risk of disease. But as you get over 100 in your vitamin D level, it starts to go up again. So this is like J curve. So your risk starts to go up again after you pass like 110, 120. That's too much vitamin D. You got too much going on here, and it's going to start creating chaos in your body. So anyway, 30 to 100, that's too big of a reference. So what you want to do is be more specific with that, and we'll tell you more about that in just a second. Same kind of thing happens with cholesterol. So they want you to be total cholesterol below 199. Okay. Well, cholesterol has a lot of moving parts to it. It's like saying as long as your engine is between this degrees and that degrees, your engine's okay. But there could be lots of things happening in between that make it not okay. So total cholesterol under 199. Okay, well, what's total cholesterol? Well, that's a combination of several things like LDL, HDL, triglycerides. For a lot of people, it's the triglyceride. I think you take 60% of the triglycerides in the total cholesterol is how that works out. The triglycerides are what really throw people out. Is it 20?
I thought it was 20.
Anyway, there's some calculation there that we'll find out later, because we've obviously both kind of forgotten what that is. But triglycerides is included in that calculation. And so triglycerides are what a lot of people have issues with. A lot of Americans are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, and that means you've got high sugar in your blood. So usually triglycerides are pretty high in those folks. So HDL, LDL, all those type of things. Well, here's the thing. This is the thing that Dr. Lewis says all the time, the guy who runs our blood tests and who has created the algorithm that basically shows you your risk of diseases based on your blood test, which is really brilliant, which is why we encourage everybody to do our blood test. But anyway, we'll get more into that later. he says that it doesn't make any sense because if we're trying to lower people's total cholesterol and get it under this magic 199 number, which sadly all life insurance companies do as well, and health insurance companies, you get the best rates if you're under 199.
Right.
We're going to explain why that's maybe not where you want to be, except for maybe your blood test for your life insurance, and then go back to normal. But HDL, LDL, so you want to have high HDL, right? So if you're trying to raise your HDL, but your total cholesterol is supposed to be under 199, well, how are you supposed to do that?
So say you do a few months of eating some really good fats like avocado oil, some grass-fed butter.
Doing some cod liver oil.
Right. And you raise your HDL, which is your good cholesterol, by 10 points. But your total cholesterol was 196. You've just flagged yourself by raising your good cholesterol by 10. That makes no sense at all.
Right. That's not, and that's not a good measure of true health either. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. So let's get into that right now. So we've covered vitamin D, cholesterol. There's a few other things that you want to watch out for. For example, like white blood cell count. I think they flag you at 11,000. Well, Dr. Lewis says it's a concern at 6,000.
Right.
Because
there's something going on.
Right, because you can't maintain 11,000 white blood cells for too long, because that tells you there's a fire going on and you're not putting it out. And eventually that's going to lead to disease. So to ensure that you don't have a fire going on, it has to be under like 6,000. And then you know that you're pretty okay. So anyway, there's all these the reference intervals that they don't want to make people panic on these things with your regular doctor, but at the same time, they're not after optimal health. These things just tell you you're alive. It's very similar to something else we talk about, like the percent daily value on the back of any food label
or vitamin
with the nutritional facts on there.
Right.
So you're looking at, so it has 100% of the recommended RDA, what used to be called RDA, recommended daily amount. Now it's called percent daily value of vitamin C. Okay, great. 100% vitamin C. I'm good for the day. Yep. If you want to stay alive, you're good for the day. That's about it. That's all it does. It just keeps you alive. It's not an optimal number. Right. That's why, when you see things like supplements, like you mentioned, where they've got like vitamin D is 80, we have one at home here that's 83,000% of your daily value. And that just tells you how ridiculous the daily values are, because people look at that and they go, oh my goodness, I don't want to overdose.
Right.
That's way too much. But no. That is a therapeutic value that helps to bring you up, because most people are deficient in vitamins and minerals. We need to have more than 100% to bring you above the baseline. I mean, put it that way. It's just a baseline. And a lot of people are, most likely you are below the baseline. You need to have more than 100% of all of those things, and perhaps several 1,000% of some of those things.
Right.
Every day.
Did you tell them what the optimal vitamin D was, just for reference? Because, I don't think I was even told that before 10 years ago.
So optimal vitamin D, so let's go back to what a typical lab says. A lab result will say you need to be between 30 and 100. We say between 80 and 100. So they've got the top end right, but for optimal levels, you want to be between 80 and 100, and we'll explain why in a little bit here.
I've seen some crazy things, though. I've seen the lowest person ever was 9.
Woo! I don't know if I've ever seen a single digit.
And I have seen this week 208. Yeah, no kidding. They're definitely taking their vitamin D.
So they're now those are usually some people a little overzealous with the vitamin D, obviously. But to have a vitamin D level of 9, we're going to show you later why. Is that for example with COVID, that was a really bad situation, because people who had higher vitamin D levels had much less trouble with that virus than if they had a low reading. So anyway, let's go into cholesterol. So I'm going to show you something here. This is actually my result. So, okay. Let's go line by line here so you know what you're looking at. So this is my total cholesterol. Look at the red box there. Number on the left is 228. So this is my most recent number, 228. My previous number is on the far right. Those are all the previous numbers. So I previously had 161.
Sheesh, that's low.
Well, it is. Now that we understand it's low. It looked great for our life insurance application.
Yeah, you were proud of that at one point.
Well, yeah, and that was, I thought, oh, yeah, I'm low in cholesterol. And Dr. Lewis came around and said, no, it's not good. And we'll explain why it's good and not good in just a second. So, and then the LDL. So first of all, the total cholesterol. So they flag me as high. Oh my God, you're above the 199 number. You're at 228. That's bad. And then they flag you. Oh no, you're high with LDL. You've got 143. And then it's supposed to be under one, I don't know, 100 or something. Yeah. I don't know. And then but my previous was 81. So the total, now down below that, we have Dr. Lewis's ideal ratios. So total cholesterol should be between 200 and 260. And you see that at 228, I have a green box, which means ding, green light. I'm good. Look at the LDL, 143. What does Dr. Lewis consider optimal? 100 to 160. Again, ding, I'm good. The green box, 143. So you can see that even though the reference interval from LabCorp says, you're high in this, you're high in that, start panicking, Dr. Lewis says, no. You've got all your numbers in line. If you'll see there from top to bottom, all 6 of those numbers are all within the proper ranges. I'm green from top to bottom.
And let's even add a little bit more, because my total cholesterol is over 260.
Right.
But there's also a calculation that you do, and explain that calculation, because really I'm still in the optimal range. My CRP is super low. My insulin is super low. Everything about my health is super low, but my cholesterol total is flagged, obviously, as,
Right. So the numbers themselves don't matter. What matters is the ratios between some of those, between total cholesterol and HDL, between LDL and HDL, between total cholesterol and the triglycerides.
Right.
Those calculations are what matter. So the ratios, are they really widespread, or are they here? So if you look at all those numbers, and I've done this for several of our clients who were concerned with some of their numbers, and even that they saw that Dr. Lewis put them in line, and they didn't believe it. They're like, well, no, I don't believe that. So, okay, I brought them to another website, totally not related to our website or Dr. Lewis's website. It's this one guy who put up these, he's called, what's his name? Harold or Herb or something like this. Anyway, so he did these calculations. And so he's got this little calculator. You can plug in all your numbers and he figures out all the ratios. And the ratios, even though he'll show up above, here are your numbers that you plugged in. According to reference intervals, according to modern medicine, you'll be flagged as high here, high risk, and you'd be panicking. Put those same numbers into the ratios that compare those different numbers. And all of a sudden you're ideal, perfect, ideal. And it's like, wow, wait a second. So I'm fine. So to your point, the numbers don't really matter. It's the ratios between those different pieces of total cholesterol.
Right.
Very interesting. All right. So speaking of cholesterol again, so why is, okay, so LDL, HDL. So what are LDL and HDL? So we're always told that LDL is the bad cholesterol, HDL is the good cholesterol.
Right.
Why? So LDL is not bad and HDL is not good. They both have their jobs. Each one of them has their own job. So I liken it to an airport. So imagine each one of your red blood cells as an airport. And here's what happens. LDL brings nutrients to your cells, and use the L in LDL with a little bit of a word association to mean low, flying in low to the airport. Again, imagine your red blood cell as the airport. So LDL brings things to the airport, coming in low. The HDL takes things back from your cells back to your liver for processing. This is the high HDL or HDL. So you're imagine planes going out high from the airport. So there you go. Planes coming in low, planes going out high. Now you can imagine. Let's see if you did have way too much LDL and not enough HDL. Okay, well let's look at this scenario. If you have too many planes coming to the airport and not a lot of planes taking off from the airport, what do you have?
A mess.
You got a mess. You got a traffic jam. You got some clogging up there. Well, that's what happens. That's what happens. LDL is only bad, quote unquote, if you don't have enough HDL to take it out. So you've got to have stuff coming in and stuff going out. If you just have continual stuff coming in, it's just like being constipated. You don't have anything going out, so yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a bad situation. You've got to get some stuff out, and that's why you need HDL. So how do you raise HDL? I mean, that's usually the optimal question. So yes, you do the good fats, as Jody was mentioning earlier, cod liver oil, coconut oil, butter, and you're thinking to yourself, this all sounds like saturated fat. Yep, it is. And also exercise, especially in the morning for guys, that will raise HDL. So that will all get things moving, because we know that exercise in general just kind of gets things moving.
Right.
If you have exercise on a regular basis, you know that you go to the bathroom on a regular basis. It just kind of happens. And so the same thing with the LDL HDL scenario. Same thing happens. So you just exercise really is a big key to that, and so is eating good fats, getting lots of good water on the opposite end of things. Just taking care of yourself in general.
And so just throw out there, what could you do less of to lower your LDL if need be? Mm-hmm. You don't have to concentrate about it as much as you think, and a lot of people don't. But if you want to lower your LDL, which you should not concentrate on the bad fats.
Right.
Tell us what those bad fats are.
So you're talking about any kind of corn oil, coconut oil, sunflower,
Coconut.
Did I say coconut?
You did.
Okay, let's start again. Corn oil, canola oil, that's what I meant to say. Safflower oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed oil.
Any kind of heated oil that shouldn't be heated, like olive oil, which is a good oil, but if you heat it, it turns not so good.
So you're thinking, okay, well, how do I keep track of that? Which one's good, which one's not? The ones that are solid at room temperature, feel free to heat them and melt them. Those are the ones you cook with. Got it? So butter, coconut oil. If you're into eating pork products, which we are not, you could use lard. You could use beef tallow. Ghee. All those things that are solid at room temperature, those are the ones you melt and use for heating applications. If they are liquid at room temperature, like olive oil. Now, avocado oil is liquid at room temperature. It's not a saturated fat. I mean, that's how you tell the difference. Saturated fat is solid at room temperature. And generally, you cook with saturated fats. However, avocado oil does have a very high tolerance for heat, what they call a high smoke point. So you can use avocado oil, and it is liquid. But generally, you want to use the solid oils for cooking, the liquid oils for cold applications, like for putting on top of your salad or whatever. Or pasta, yeah. So that's how you do it. And those are the unsaturated oils. And we won't get into that tonight. We'll talk about that another time.
We just talked about it.
No, but I mean, the unsaturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, that's a whole conversation in itself. So we'll talk about that some other time, which we've talked about before, as a matter of fact. But vitamin D, let's get into that now too. Vitamin D and cholesterol are actually related. So the chemical name for vitamin D is cholecalciferol. So you're thinking, that sounds like, that word sounds like two different things, cholesterol and calcium, cholecalciferol, right? Because both of those are involved with vitamin D. So cholesterol, what happens is the sun, if you're out in the sun, hits your skin, the cholesterol on your skin reacts with the sunlight, goes down into your bloodstream, creates this calcium cloud, as it were, goes into your bones, strengthens your bones, all that type of thing, and creates vitamin D. I'm really simplifying here, but that's how those two things are interrelated. So that is the relationship with cholesterol. Now, vitamin D, a high vitamin D will actually bring your cholesterol into balance. You were talking about raising HDL and lowering LDL. Mm-hmm. Getting more vitamin D is a simple way to do that as well, in addition to avoiding all those nasty oils. Check this out. So here is the vitamin D and risk factors with cardiovascular disease. So you will reduce cardiovascular disease by reducing total cholesterol, triglycerides, and LDL, and raising your HDL on the other side of things, all by those reference intervals there, 5.8%, 4.64%, 3.86%, or not percent, milligrams per deciliter is what that is. And 3.48 on the other side, raising HDL, if you just take some vitamin D, 3,000 IU a day, international units a day. That is really, I mean, for For a whitey like me, that's like 15 minutes in the sun.
Yeah, and 3,000 IU taking it by supplement is actually not very much.
No, that's right. Most people take about 2,000 a day anyway. So you could just up it a little bit and you getting those results. Now, when I say a whitey like me, like folks with darker skin, like if you are from African American descent or you're even just Native American or Asian even, that's going to take a longer for the sun to make an impact because your pigment is protecting you.
Right.
So from the sun. So you've got to get that much more sun. So the darker you are, if you've got really dark skin, then you are going to need like an hour in the sun, where someone like me might need 15 minutes. Right?
Right.
So that's how that works. All right. So there is vitamin D and cholesterol. Now, vitamin D, we talked about earlier about how it protected people from things like COVID. And that's pretty much protecting you from any ailment because it helps strengthen the immune system. So here's an interesting chart from, I believe this was Indonesia. Yeah, they did 780 Indonesian patients who were confirmed COVID-19 positive. So check this out. On the left side there, this is the that chart is the COVID-19 death rate by vitamin D level. So if they had a normal vitamin D level, and remember, normal is just like, I think it wasn't 30 to 100, it was like 50 to 100. So even if you were as low as 50 on the vitamin D level, you had a 4.1% chance of dying, which is like pretty much nothing. If you're insufficient in vitamin D, and again, so insufficient was, I can't remember what the rate was, but or what the level was that they considered insufficient. But regardless, if you were insufficient in vitamin D below that 50 mark, look at that jump. You were 87%, had an 87% chance of something really bad happening. And then if you were totally deficient, like this guy who had, what, 9?
9, yes.
That guy, if he had contracted COVID, could have been in very big trouble. 98.9% you could have had a chance of dying if you were deficient in vitamin D. Now, how can you get more vitamin D? Well, obviously we talked about supplementation and getting in the sun, but some foods you can eat are red meat, eggs, oily fish, and liver. So there you go. There's some truth about vitamin D, where if your doctor says, your vitamin D level doesn't matter. And we've heard doctors say that. That's just, wow. You know what? You need to go back to some of these research studies and slow down and read these because they're really important. Now, another thing we've heard about is that...
Not to mention, vitamin D is great for moods and everything else.
Yeah.
It stabilizes.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
It's a hormone. So it's really not a vitamin. It's a hormone.
Right.
So if your vitamin D levels are low, you can almost guarantee that your mood is not going to be stabilized.
Right. And a lot of... even your other hormones can be out of whack. What we found is that even if one of your hormones is out of whack, your whole thyroid function can just be out to lunch.
Yep.
So vitamin D or serotonin, melatonin, any one of these hormones, if they're out, or estrogen, testosterone, anything, if anything's out of whack, that's,
And listen, it's really hard. It's really easy to put something out of whack. For instance, if your vitamin D level is 200, it's a little too
that's
high.
easy to fix.
But if it's upwards of 100, 120, it's not a big deal. But if you're doing melatonin every night and not really regulating it, and you don't know where your melatonin's at, you can really put yourself out of whack, which our son totally did. He was taking so much melatonin at night trying to sleep that he couldn't sleep. So it has the opposite effect.
It's kind of like doing so much caffeine that it makes you sleepy.
Exactly.
Right? Like you can, if you've done a lot of caffeine, you know that can happen.
It used to happen to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, so with the hormones, it's, yes, if you have one out of whack, it can put everything else out of whack. So vitamin D is one of the things you can really help control, because you have total control over that with supplementation and being out in the sun. So 80 to 100, you can keep it between that. The reason why thyroids are such a big deal these days, almost everybody, both of us have imperfect thyroids.
Right.
We're trying to fix things. So is it the testosterone? Is it the estrogen? Is it the serotonin? Is it any one of the hormones?
Is it no iodine in our crops?
That's probably got a lot to do with it, really. So anyway, that's another crazy thing that we'll get on another time. We can do a whole show probably on thyroid.
True.
So anyway, we're going to talk about something else now. Something interesting we ran into in one of the people we had consulted just last week. I was talking to a woman and her husband. She was starting to have the early stages of Alzheimer's or some kind of dementia. They were getting a little worried about it because she was forgetting things and doing some weird stuff. And so, and she's still, very coherent and understands a lot of things. And we were trying to figure out what happened here. Now, a lot of doctors will tell you that, well, metals, our body has the innate ability to get rid of toxins. Well, yes, it does to some degree. But metals are very hard to get rid of. So metals will accumulate and they'll build up and build up and build up over time. Now, I want to show you a test result from this woman who shall remain nameless. And you'll see, this is the weird thing. This is what really stuck out and let me know that something was going on here. So this woman did a toxin test and all kinds of toxic compounds were tested. Nothing really showed up. Like you'll see the one down there, number 2, right? It's like in the green. You can tell something's really bad if it's in the red. So every other toxin she was tested for was in the green. And she did this on the advice of a naturopath or something like this. And they came to us for, they wanted to gather as much information as possible. So I'm looking at this and I see this one that's super high. And I'm like, what is up with that? So I look at this. It's called 2H1B, as you can see in the blue bar there. And I look at where does 2H1B come from? Well, it comes from, as you can see highlighted in the blue, gasoline or its vapors and exhaust fumes. I'm thinking, well, how did this woman get so... I mean, if that's the case, was she a gas station attendant or something? Or was she exposed to gasoline or something? Or what happened? So anyway, this really explains the necessity to ask questions. So a lot of doctors, when you go to the doctor, is like, what's your symptoms? Here's a drug. See you later. 5 minutes later. They're so busy, just boom, boom, out. Especially if it's not your regular doctor. You just go in to get prescription and you're out. And they didn't ask any questions. They didn't try and do an investigation and see where things came from. If you go to a functional chiropractor or any kind of functional practitioner, they are going to spend like 2 hours with you or get you to answer a million questions. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is so invasive. Why do I need to answer all these questions? Like when you come to us, we give you this 125 question questionnaire that by the end of it, you're probably like, oh, what is the point of this? This is ridiculous. You're asking me about this and that and the other thing. What did I do for a living? My parents, was there any mold in the house? Did I have cats? Did I let the cats on the furniture? Did I not? What about the dogs? Like, oh my, stop asking already. No, these are really important. And this woman's experience explains why. So I saw this really high 2H1B that comes from gasoline. I'm trying to figure this out, right? So I look at this and then I look at the questionnaire that we asked her. What do you do for a living? Da, 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 da. Okay, she spent 25 years. She was a flight attendant. Okay. And I start to think, wait a minute. So when I get to talk to her, I said, when you were a flight attendant, so how, because it seemed like 10 years that she was a flight attendant. And I said, you were a flight attendant for 10 years. She said, no, actually I was a flight attendant for 25 years. Oh, okay. So you did this for a very long time. When you were a flight attendant, do you spend a lot of time in the back of the airplane? She said, yes. So you were preparing drinks for people, all that kind of thing, getting the snacks ready with the beverage carts and all that. And you just generally in the back. She says, yeah. I said, did you always smell the kerosene, like the jet fuel back there? And was it, because you'd be kind of behind the engines, right? And when they're fueling up and all that kind of thing. She says, yeah, you got used to it. I said, but you did smell it. She says, oh yeah, it stunk all the time like kerosene. And I was like, you did that for 25 years. Yes. You see where I'm going with this. So I said to her, has anyone ever told you that your high level of toxin, which may be causing your memory issues, may have been from your 25 years in a career as a flight attendant, spending all that time in the back of an airplane with the fumes of the kerosene coming into the airplane? Yeah. She said, I never thought about that. See, this is the investigation we need to do with people. This is the kind of stuff that we do when you come to us. We dig deep. We do like an investigation to find out what the heck is going on and why. What caused it? How did this happen? Not, oh, it happened. You've got cancer. Here's a drug to take. Okay, that's fine, but let's find out what happened to reverse that and never do it again, at least, and hopefully reverse the symptoms you're having so that you don't suffer with this any longer and it doesn't threaten your life. That's the stuff we're interested in. That's the stuff we want to figure out for you. And that's what this innovative blood test that Dr. Lewis has created helps us do. So that's one amazing example. Now, speaking of, we spoke of COVID and vitamin D.
Right.
So there's a link there, and now there's something very interesting with the latest thing out there. We've just recently learned that there's one case in our county now.
Yes, one today.
Monkeypox. Okay, so you obviously heard of monkeypox. So monkeypox,
which we talked about when? January, February.
Oh, yeah, in February. If you look back on our Laird Wellness Live, we did something called What You Need to Know About Smallpox. Now, all pox are related, but watch that episode. That's really, and remember, that was February of 2022. This monkeypox thing only came around in July.
Right.
Look, just watch that. It's interesting. So anyway, so this monkeypox comes around, and we're like, okay, well, who's getting it? People with compromised immune systems, really. And so I thought about this and thought, well, if we look at the gut, so vitamin D helps the immune system, right? Mm-hmm. So follow me on this trail here, this line of thinking. So vitamin D helps the gut. It helps the it helps the immune system. And where does your immune system live? Your immune system lives in the gut. Okay. So if you don't have vitamin D, you're going to have a compromised immune system.
Right.
Okay. All right. So the gut affects the immune system. The immune system drives everything. So here's something very interesting. Check this out. This is from January of this year. This is from Healthline, very popular website. And it says long COVID. We all know what long COVID is. It's COVID symptoms long after the actual ailment is gone. Linked to unbalanced gut microbiome. Look at that. Now look at the highlighted portion at the bottom. People with a less diverse microbiome, that is, they don't have a lot of species in their gut, in their garden, down in their bowels, in their intestines, were more likely to have lingering symptoms after a coronavirus infection. Why? Because if you don't have a diverse microbiome, if you don't have a lot of different good bugs living in your gut, you don't have a healthy immune system. Right. If you don't have a healthy immune system, you can't fight off things like COVID. There you go. This is why it is imperative to look after your gut health, because you need to look after it as if your life depended on it, because it kind of does.
Right.
So that's why, that's why we focus so much, and Dr. Lewis especially focuses on the gut. Everybody says, why are you so concerned with probiotics? Why are you putting me on these probiotics and things like that? Because we need to really, for example, we look at the growing problem, or the crop problem in our world. Everybody says, oh, there's no nutrients left in the soil because we've over-farmed and that kind of thing. Yes, that's true. Yeah. So what's in the soil? We have microbes. Thank you. Microbes in the soil. Microbiome, microbes. You see in this correlation? That's why I said your gut is kind of like a garden. So you need to have many different types of bugs. Yeah. Millions and millions and billions of thank you, President Trump, of different types of microbes in the soil, right, in order to have a balanced, ecosystem. And that's how the plants get their nutrients. And so we've depleted that by over-farming and things like that. So basically, your gut is kind of over-farmed. When we eat those processed foods and all this type of thing, it's the same thing as putting artificial fertilizer into the soil. We destroy some of that flora, some of that diversity in our guts. Right. And therefore, we don't have a strong diversity of a microbiome in our guts.
And you can test for that.
Yes, you can. Tell us about that, because you run that for people all the time.
Well, we don't necessarily run that with HRP, but I have had it done a couple of times, and I found it very interesting because, when you do take a probiotic, and say you take the same probiotic over and over again for a year or two, not every probiotic has a lot of strains in it. So let's just say this particular strain has 9. I'm just throwing that number out there. Well, when I tested my microbiome a couple of months ago, they found, I think it was 78 different strains in my gut.
Okay.
And they named each and every single one of them.
Wow.
So that was pretty
Okay.
cool. Well, there's many, many more than that. But the 78 that were detectable. There was probably many more that were microscopic, but 78 that they could measure. But some of them were too high. Some of them were too low. And that means that whatever probiotic I was taking at the time had too much of this in, or I was taking it for too long and overdid it here,
Right.
and underdid it here. And that's where candida can grow and all sorts of things, because if you it's highly complicated. There's a whole science behind it. So what we tell people to do is actually take a different probiotic. Each time you are finished a bottle, take something different the next time.
Yeah, find a good one though. Find a good one. Like take
Always
good ones and take lots of different ones. So
and we can tell you which ones are good and which ones are not. There are some that we swear by. There's
Yeah.
probably 4 or 5 that we absolutely swear by.
one is really good that we carry from Billy Weiss, actually. This is really excellent. And there's some other ones from a company called Microbiome.
Microbiome Labs.
Microbiome Labs. Yeah, you can actually find them on Amazon, but you can also get them through us through Full Script.
And actually, you interviewed the CEO just the other day, and you can find that
had
on
a webinar with
YouTube
him.
if you want to find out, if you want a really heady webinar about microbiome.
Oh, it was
labs.
really geeky. I loved it. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
we kind of geeked out on that. Let us know, because we can maybe put it up on Laird Wellness. It was a really great webinar.
And
But,
Dr. Lewis has put it up on his YouTube channel, correct?
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, it was really great. Kiran Krishnan is the guy's name. Kiran, Kiran, Krishnan, Krish.
Yeah.
N-A-N.
So his probiotic is called Megaspore.
Yeah.
Fantastic probiotic. So again, just cycle your probiotics. Don't stick to any one.
And we just bought one called Zen Biome, which is good for mood. Why would mood be? Well, because it all starts in the gut. So if you look after the gut, your mind, remember that you've heard me talk about this before, the enteric nervous system, that superhighway between your gut and the brain, so that the health of your gut will determine the health of your brain. Think about that. Take that one to the bank. Again, the health of your gut determines the health of your brain. Look at the person who had high metals, right? So vice versa. That can happen both ways.
And so we just ordered that one for our daughter, who is starting PT school, and you can imagine another 3.5 years. It's a doctorate
stress.
program.
Yep.
High stress, maybe not a lot of time to eat fantastically. So we ordered her that probiotic to see how it will affect her moods and help her out
And just
with stress.
Keep a level mind. Yep. All right. So that's that. Now, okay. Salt. Here's another thing. People say that salt is the enemy. Well, salt is not the enemy.
Right. Everybody says,
Iodized salt that you find in the restaurant, or like, the white free flowing salt that you have in your house. Yeah, that's the enemy, because it is 99 point something or other % sodium chloride. And your body needs sodium chloride, but it also needs the natural, the other minerals that are present naturally with sodium chloride to help your body deal with the sodium chloride. And once we strip them all out and just left with sodium chloride, well, then that causes problems.
The one nice thing about white salt, which is the only good thing, is that it's iodized.
Yeah, but you can get your
That's
iodine
it.
other ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just check it out.
Yeah, just get your iodine other ways, either through iodine or through kelp, or like you said, doing some more sea vegetables, things like that. Maybe doing some nori with some sushi or something like that.
I've been putting kelp seasoning on our salad and our scrambled eggs today.
There you go. That was actually really good. Yeah, tastes really good. So now, David Brownstein, good friend of ours, he is really big on salt and iodine. Here's what he has to say about salt. In the blue up top, the immune system cannot function without salt. Our hormonal system cannot function well without salt. And iodine itself cannot work in the body without adequate amounts of salt. Skip down to the orange. This is a staple that people need in their diets. The adrenal system cannot function well without salt. The thyroid system cannot function well without salt. And the immune system cannot function without salt. Iodine works better in the body with salt, as salt helps to usher out bromide and fluoride in the body while you take iodine. So he is very big on salt. And actually, in other interviews and in his book, I forget what it's called, but it's all about salt. And you can find it at drbrownstein.com, or you can go on Amazon and find it. He actually says that salt with the minerals left in it. So this is Celtic sea salt or Himalayan, the pink salt. I think everybody's really big on
Redmond salt.
Redmond salt. Redmond's real salt, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
All of those have all of those like 80 plus minerals that surround the sodium chloride and help your body deal with the sodium chloride so that it does not become a problem. And in fact, that type of salt will help to regulate blood pressure.
Right.
It will not raise it. It will either, if it's too high, it'll bring it down. If it's too low, it'll bring it up. Funny how that happens, huh? Gee, maybe God never intended us to refine salt and put it on the restaurant table. So this is the type you still want. Real salt, Celtic sea salt, or Himalayan pink salt. So there you go. Now, another thing we want to tell people is, well, we already talked about this. I had it on my notes here, but a diet doesn't matter. It does matter. Because like we said, your gut is the home for everything, for immune system, for your mind, for you to think. And actually this is where all of your your serotonin, your melatonin, all those type of things are created in the gut. So if you're having trouble sleeping, like our son was, maybe don't reach for the melatonin right away. Take a look at what's happening in your gut.
Right.
Maybe you're eating gluten, or maybe you're eating something that
or not enough water,
or maybe take a look at that first.
Well, I mean, I was going to talk about that when we were talking about cholesterol at the beginning, because somebody has total cholesterol of 260, but they eat junk food all day. That's not good. So you do have to take a look at the diet, because maybe your cholesterol numbers are within range, but everything else is a mess all the way around it.
And then to our point previously, that processed foods especially are like, putting artificial fertilizer and herbicides and pesticides on soil, just as that destroys the microbial diversity in the soil. It will also wreck the microbial diversity in your gut.
Right.
The foods, think about that. The foods made with those nasty things, like the cottonseed oil, the canola oil, all that artificial stuff. So basically, what's the lesson here? Go back to as much natural, unprocessed things as possible, and your gut will correct itself. And in the meantime, take some probiotics to sort of lift you up out of that deficiency and bring you at least up to a baseline, like we talked about with nutrition, and go above that baseline and make yourself healthier.
Yeah.
So another thing we wanted to talk about too, real quick, is that when you do your blood sugar, when you measure your blood sugar for a blood test, a lot of folks will do it first thing in the morning. And we advise against that, because your glucose level first thing in the morning is going to be slightly elevated, because even if you fasted the day before, like from 8 p.m. to midnight or whatever, in the morning, your body's going to reserve a little bit of glucose, a little bit of adrenaline to get you up in the morning.
Right.
So if you test right away within the first couple of hours of waking up, you're going to have an artificially high glucose level, because your body has saved some to push into your blood system to sort of wake you up and get you going. You want to wait until a couple hours after that to get a true fasting blood sugar level. Like say 11 a.m. Like maybe if you're doing intermittent fasting and only eating your first meal at noon, test like an hour before that. Right. That's how you will get a true fasting blood level. Otherwise, it's going to be a little artificial, and you're going to be maybe alarmed for no reason.
Right.
So, and I think that's all we wanted to talk about tonight. So anyway,
that was a lot of information.
It is, yeah. And if you want even more information, you can do one of these babies. You can go to our website And go to Rude Awakening, Rude Awakening, what am I talking about? LairdWellness.com/discovery. At LairdWellness.com/discovery. And you will find our discovery panel. This is the same test we do with our 6-week and our 12-week coaching programs, which you can also do. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But it's just the test. Yep. If you just want to do the test.
And a 1-hour consult.
And a 1-hour consult. Yes, thank you. So we'll do the test. We'll send it through Dr. Lewis's magical algorithm, which is actually patented, by the way. It's so special. It will show you your risk of developing cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all these type of things. It's not going to diagnose. That's not what we do. We show you how far along the trail you are to maybe developing these things, which Dr. Lewis calls the health disease continuum.
Right. Everybody is on the continuum. Everybody is on it.
Right.
You're either at the beginning of it or at the end of it or in the middle of it. Obviously, you want to be in the middle.
Yeah.
But everybody is on a health continuum, and it's just based on where you are. We can, if you're in the middle, that's great. But if you're in the high end, we can get you back down. If you're in the low end, we can get you back to the middle.
Right. And it's just based on, those markers in those blood tests that people who already have been diagnosed with those diseases, where they're at, and we want to get you as far away from that as possible. So we show you, according to our more fussy reference intervals that we talked about earlier, where you need to be so that you are not even at risk of developing those things, which is a beautiful thing. So it's not about saying you have this, as of this moment you have cancer because you have this in your blood. No. We're like, you're kind of heading there. Let's turn you around. How do we turn you around? And that's the big thing. How do we do that? That's what the consult's all about. We take a look at it. We take a look at that questionnaire I talked about earlier. We put those things two together. We might even ask you to do like a 3-day food log.
We might.
We put all that information together. We take a look at it, and pretty soon it becomes kind of obvious if you have the skills that we do, and we can go, okay, we know what's going on here.
So it all depends on how much work you want to do. Do you want to go down that path where not so good, or do you want to just kind of bring it back? Because, we're going into some times where we're going to need to turn things around.
Absolutely. And if you want to just do the test and say, okay, I got it. I listened to Scott's consult. I can do it. I can do this from here. That was easy. Okay, so you just want to do the blood test. If you're kind of like, I might need some hand-holding here, or at least what a lot of people do, they get our coaching program just so we can kind of whip them in the behind and say every week, are you sticking to this? Here's another thing to consider. Here's some more information. And we basically teach you half an hour every week for 6 weeks. We've actually been able to lower our price on this thing by almost 50% because we realize that when we're talking to people, we don't need a full hour every time we talk to you. We only need about half an hour. So basically we slashed our price from like an hour each time we meet with you to like half an hour. And oh my gosh, you should see how low it is now. So our 6-week program and our 12-week program are way lower than they used to be. And so if you need some hand-holding, or if you need some whooping in the butt, or if you need us to even just some accountability for someone, if you know that every week someone's going to say, look, Johnny, did you do your job? Did you do this? Did you go exercising every week? Okay, we're not up to par. Come on, man. You need someone to kick you in the butt like that. We're very happy to do it. And if you're not sure which one you want to do, just go here. Go to lairdwellness.com/blueprint. There you'll find a little bit of detail about what this thing's all about. And then you can book a free 30-minute consult with me to figure out if this works for you or not.
Right.
Totally free before you dive in. You can ask all the questions you want. Say, what about this? What about that? What are you going to teach me? Is this really worth it? Why? I'll answer all that stuff for you. And so that's in our 30-minute consult. It's not a group thing. It's just between me and you. This is literally your time slot. Just me and you talking on the phone or on a Zoom call, whatever you want to do. I will answer everything you want to know about this. And then you can decide make an informed decision whether you just want to do the test or if you want to do some coaching along with it. I'd be happy to help you. So that is that for tonight. We thank you for joining us. Yes. And we hope that you will, like Jody said, guys, we don't know what's coming our way. We know monkeypox is coming our way because, it's
here.
Sort of whatever, and monkeypox, whatever. Okay, whatever. That's fine. I don't worry about that one. But anyway, there's lots of other sinister things coming our way, and we don't know what is being planned to come against us. And so, especially as believers, So we really need to get our health in order. We need, number one, what did we talk about tonight? We kept going back to the gut, to the gut. Gotta get our gut in order to withstand all of these things. Again, how do you do that? We will teach you how. We will educate you so that we can educate you once and you can take it for the rest of your life. You will know exactly what to do. But you've got to learn how first, and we'd be happy to teach you that, okay? So go to lairdwellness.com/blueprint to get that 30-minute for free, or lairdwellness.com/discovery if you just want to go ahead and get the test and start. So we will see you there. Thank you for watching, and hopefully see you next week. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.